Welcome to another episode of TrialSite News. Today we're going to be discussing the World Health Organization and their attempts to incentivize the sharing of scientific data during a pandemic, which would include tools that could be used to mandate this type of sharing, a move that has some questioning the legality of such a deal, as it could override national law. That is going to be the subject of today's episode. And so, from TrialSite News, I am Adrian, and our episode is starting right now. So, the World Health Organization is exploring how to incentivize sharing of scientific information during a pandemic, ranging from genetic sequence data to broader scientific know-how. Negotiations are underway for two parallel tools that could be used to mandate this type of data sharing. First, there's amendments to the International Health Regulations, or the IHR 2005, and there's the development of a new pandemic treaty through the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body, otherwise known as the INB. Now, we here at TrialSite News have been following at TrialSiteNews.com how the IHR amendments have revealed trust issues within the WHO, while the pandemic treaty draft starts to take shape. You see, the role of the WHO has come under scrutiny due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and with it, the question of transparency. In particular, there has been a focus on decisions that appear to overstep the sovereignty of nations with health-related mandates, not to mention the way that pandemic emergency use listings can greenlight pharmaceutical companies to accelerate their production of drugs and profits. However, the WHO argues that sharing data during a public health emergency of international concern could enhance the world's ability to respond to the situation. Accurate epidemiological data and pathogen genetics help scientists monitor the spread of disease, make evidence-based recommendations for preventative measures, and can accelerate the development of vaccines and treatments. Although, considering the blowback against this current crop of mRNA vaccines, this hardly seems to be an incentive to your average citizens. Anyway, the argument goes that transparent sharing of information would also facilitate analysis of how a pathogen entered the population, so we can reduce the chance of it happening again. For COVID-19, for example, there are still key gaps in the information that we have about the early days of the pandemic, which leaves question marks over where the virus originated, and you can see them fighting over it now. At the IHR Working Group meeting, the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers and Associations encouraged the working group to, quote, take stock of the lessons learned from the pandemic and to establish a system of rapid reporting and information sharing relating to emerging pathogens. Now, the concept of freely shared data might sound fine in theory, but there are good reasons why scientists guard their data closely, particularly the kind of data that the WHO is discussing here. One clear reason is that the commercial value of this information is astronomical. For example, right now, Moderna is embroiled in a legal feud with Pfizer-BioNTech related to patent rights for the COVID-19 mRNA vaccines. One of the issues is the full-length spike protein genetic code. Together, the two companies made an estimated $34 billion in pre-tax profit in 2021 alone. Moderna is also being sued by a smaller biotech company, Arbutus Biopharma, for using their vaccine delivery nanoparticles. Now, apart from the money, there are non-financial benefits that a scientist should be able to expect from their work, including acknowledgement, which can ultimately increase their access to future grants and academic positions. Typically, this starts with peer-reviewed publication, a time-consuming process that is an ineffective way of communicating data in an emergency. And on the darker side, there is the concern of a corruptible WHO. There is great potential risk of conflicts of interest. This concept of regulatory capture, in which the policies and regulations set by government agencies are adjusted to align with industry interests, is long established. Reference to FENSA in the IHR proposals suggests that countries may be concerned that the WHO is aligning its recommendations with the interests of third parties, such as pharmaceutical companies or philanthropic donors, all behind closed doors. In any case, the review committee highlighted the need to incentivize the process by ensuring that individual scientists, organizations, and countries don't lose out on the benefits and acknowledgement of their contributions. In the working group discussions, Namibia voiced the perspective that sharing data is conditional on sharing benefits, both monetary and non-monetary. However, Switzerland disagreed. The representative for that country described the reliable and quick exchange of information as absolutely essential, clarifying that it should include genetic sequence data and samples of pathogens. They said that this is an important non-negotiable for us to have proper surveillance and early alerts. Switzerland is against any form of confidentiality when sharing epidemiological data. The IFPMA representative implied that data sharing would be balanced by improved access to healthcare products. She said pharmaceutical associations are committed to early access via the Berlin Declaration by ring-fencing a proportion of production for use in priority populations in low-income countries. Regarding how these products would be procured, the representative said that they were taking measures to make them available and affordable, a move that Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, has supported. Now, the review committee recommended a system where these benefits are adequately shared with the original party, but not in a transactional way that could cause delays in the face of a public health emergency. The committee referred to the Pandemic Influenza Preparedness Framework, which was adopted in the 64th World Health Assembly back in 2011. Under this agreement, WHO member states and the pharmaceutical industry shared data related to influenza for the purpose of improving vaccine development. The counterbalance is that all participants have to abide by agreements so that the WHO and states have access to the outcomes that are produced from that data. Speaking at the work group meeting, Namibia highlighted the need for a similar multilateral agreement on data and benefit sharing. They also emphasized a need for this to be arranged in advance of an outbreak so that no time is wasted negotiating in the face of an emergency. Tanzania suggested that the template material transfer agreement should be amended to ensure the materials shared are only used for a specific purpose. This would mean that genetic sequence data shared for variant monitoring purposes could not then be used for the development of a commercial vaccine, for example. Tanzania also tied in the topic of capacity building, stating that the WHO needs to help developed countries prepare for the next pandemic, so that they are better able to analyze pathogens and evaluate genetic material when the time comes. Now, all of this, of course, raises the concern, is a sharing mandate legal? The review committee raised this very concern over the legal feasibility of a WHO mandate on data sharing, such as exchange of health product ingredients, manufacturing know-how, and other scientific information. They flagged the existing agreements and intellectual property laws that govern how and when this information can be transferred, and that the proposed amendments would need rephrasing to avoid impinging on national laws. Now, we here at TrialSite News have reported on concerns that through the new IHR amendments, countries will not only be giving up much of their sovereignty to handle health-related concerns in their territories, but also not have transparency and access into the decision-making process, leaving them vulnerable to decisions that do not favor them. In the working group meeting, for example, the Russian Federation protested against certain amendments that they considered undermine the sovereignty of state parties and cannot be included in the document. They gave examples of mandatory surveillance capacity reporting systems, uninvited offers of help, or on-site visits to access outbreaks, and publication of unconfirmed information about said outbreaks. The issue of sovereignty has been a large concern for people reading the proposed IHR amendments. The IHR is defined as a legally binding regulation, and so could overrun national law. However, the review committee agreed that the IHR regulations cannot be mandatory and referred to Article 3 of the IHR, which reiterates the sovereign right of countries to legislate their own nations. And so, as the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body continues their discussion of their legally binding pandemic treaty in closed sessions at their meeting in Geneva this week, we here at TrialSite News will continue to monitor the temperature of this topic in the discussions and reports that are made public. And that, my friends, will bring our episode to a close once more. For more content like this, be sure to check back to this channel daily, Monday through Friday, or for written content every day, 7 days a week. visit our website at TrialSiteNews.com. And as ever always, my friends, thank you so much for joining me on the program today. From TrialSite News, I am Adrian, and I will see you all next time.